Jimin almost left BTS in 2015. Hyuk's shocking confession revealed, and Jungkook's emotional reaction raises alarming questions. It was the revelation no one saw coming, one that shattered the illusion of invincibility surrounding the world's most successful boy group. A revelation that, with just a few words, forced millions to reevaluate everything they thought they knew about BTS. There was a moment I nearly replaced a member. The statement echoed like a quiet explosion. He didn't say the name, but he didn't have to. For those who have followed BTS from the beginning, the year 2015 was already a wound barely healed. And now, the spotlight turned sharply onto one name, Park Jimin. Could BTS, as we know it today, have ever existed without him? The implications are seismic. Not only did Jimin almost leave BTS during their most pivotal era, but the group's very foundation, its chemistry, its art, its future, came dangerously close to collapse. Hyuk's quiet admission may have been brief, but it carried the weight of a decade. Fans instantly began pulling the thread. All roads led to one year, 2015, the era of the most beautiful moment in life. The turning point when BTS teetered on the edge of glory or disbandment, and beneath that, hidden in the shadows of stadium lights and award shows, was Jimin. Struggling, hurting, nearly gone. What exactly happened behind closed doors? Why would Hyuk, the mastermind behind BTS's rise, even consider removing the very member who would later redefine performance standards in K-pop? The truth is more chilling than any fiction. Back then, BTS was fighting for survival. Big Hit Entertainment wasn't yet the billion-dollar empire it is today. It was a small, struggling label fighting to keep its dream alive. Every detail mattered. Every member had to be perfect. And Jimin, the last member added to the lineup, was at the center of a quiet storm. Unlike the others, Jimin didn't come in with unshakable confidence. He arrived from Busan with a body that could dance, but a mind full of doubt. In one of his early interviews, he admitted, "I thought I wasn't good enough. I was sure they would kick me out." What no one knew at the time was that it wasn't just self-doubt. There were serious internal discussions about his place in the group, conversations that might have led to his removal. Why? What drove this near decision? Those close to the group recall 2015 as the year everything cracked open. BTS was finally gaining attention with I Need You, but the internal pressure intensified. Jimin's weight fluctuated dangerously. He fainted during rehearsals. He trained for hours on end, punishing himself for every mistake. Staff members reportedly became worried. Fellow members urged him to rest. But rest wasn't an option for a trainee who felt a spot was never secure. One now resurfaced tweet from 2015 haunts fans. "I'm sorry for being like this." Was it a vague apology to fans, or a farewell note that never made it to the end? Behind the glitter of Mama 2015, reports claimed Jimin almost didn't perform. Staff cited health issues, but whispers emerged of a last-minute decision to keep him on stage. One insider claims that Hyuk was seen in a tense, emotional discussion just minutes before showtime. The footage was never aired. The truth was never confirmed. But the silence said more than words ever could. In an old fan meeting from 2016, Jean casually remarked, "There was a time we thought Jimin might leave us." At the time, fans laughed it off. Now, in light of recent confessions, the laughter has stopped. That moment is being replayed and dissected with brutal clarity. Was it a joke, or an admission disguised in humor? So, what would have happened if Jimin had walked away? The very idea sends shockwaves across the fandom. The voice behind Lie, Serendipity, and Filter gone. The artist whose presence became the emotional compass of BTS, erased from the picture. No more soft gazes into the crowd. No more trembling bows of gratitude. No more whispered, "Army, are you happy?" A 7-member group reduced to 6. A future rewritten. But it didn't happen. Jimin stayed. He fought. He endured. And now, Years later, another layer of this buried truth emerges, not from Jimin, but from someone who watched it unfold by his side. Jungkook. The Golden Magne's reaction wasn't loud. It wasn't a statement, but it was loud enough in its silence. Jungkook, who once said that Jimin was the Hyung who guided him since trainee days, reportedly became withdrawn upon hearing the resurfaced confession. Close staff noted that he avoided talking about it during downtime, but his demeanor changed. His expression when watching old footage of 2015, particularly clips of Jimin backstage, struggling alone, was reportedly unreadable. Unmoving, eyes fixed, breathing shallow, silent pain. Why did it hit Jungkook so hard? The answer is written in their shared history. From sleeping in the same room to whispering dreams in the dark, Jungkook and Jimin forged a bond that was more than just brotherhood. It was survival. Jungkook has credited Jimin multiple times for helping him stay grounded during the chaotic early years. In Burn the Stage, he cried when talking about the burdens the older members carried for him. And in Break the Silence, he called Jimin his strength. Now imagine learning that your strength almost gave up, almost disappeared, before either of you made in past interviews. Jungkook said, "I could grow because my hyungs were my base." Take away Jimin, and that foundation begins to crack. Insiders describe Jungkook's reaction as subdued but intense. He reportedly spent hours in the practice room alone, looping 2015 choreographies. A staff member overheard him mumble, "What if he really left?" A chilling question that encapsulates what millions now feel. The heartbreak deepened when fans uncovered a hidden letter, allegedly written by Jimin to himself in 2015. Though never officially published, the content surfaced briefly in a 2018 fan project. It read, "Don't give up. They haven't seen you yet, but they will." It was not just a prayer. It was a war cry from someone on the brink. The thought of what could have been is unbearable. Would BTS have soared to global stardom without Jimin's voice? Without his ability to fuse raw emotion with technical perfection? Without the calm reassurance he brings in moments of chaos? More than a performer, Jimin became the quiet anchor, the glue between personalities, the softness that balanced the hard edges. Remove him, and BTS becomes unrecognizable, not just in sound, but in soul. That's why Jungkook's silence is more telling than any speech. It's the silence of grief narrowly avoided, of history barely preserved and private. It's said that Jungkook replayed an old practice log where Jimin collapses mid-dance, refusing to quit. He reportedly whispered, "Hyung, why didn't you tell us?" There was no answer, only echoes. The confession from Hyuk might have taken a decade to surface, but for those who lived it, especially Jungkook, it was never forgotten. The tension of that time remained locked in old dance studios and long-forgotten hotel rooms. The trauma etched into their memories. Now, that lock has been broken. What Jungkook feels can't be captured in a single reaction. It's a cocktail of disbelief, sorrow, gratitude, and guilt. Gratitude that Jimin stayed. Guilt that he didn't know how close he was to losing him. And sorrow for the burden Jimin carried alone. Looking back, perhaps the reason Jungkook always stays near Jimin during group events, why he always seems to monitor his hyung's mood, is because, at some level, he remembers that feeling. The fear of loss. The weight of knowing it almost happened. This story does not end with a triumphant return or a celebratory twist. It ends in the silence of what almost was. And in that silence, we hear the echoes of resilience, pain, and unspoken love. Jimin never spoke publicly about how close he came to leaving. Jungkook never wrote a formal letter expressing his fears. But between them, there exists a quiet understanding. One that cannot be broken. One that formed not in fame, but in the shadows. Now, the world knows what almost happened. And knowing it makes everything that did happen infinitely more powerful. If Jimin had walked away in 2015, BTS would have lost not just a member, but a piece of its soul. And Jungkook, the youngest who looked up to him the most, would have lost his anchor, his brother, his beginning, and perhaps that is why, even now, Jungkook still watches him closely, making sure Jimin never has to walk alone again. The gravity of the revelation surrounding Jimin's near departure from BTS cannot be overstated. Yet amid the collective shock, emotional turbulence, and historical dissection, a far more critical question must now be posed. Is this truth, or is it fabrication? Are we witnessing the delayed disclosure of a nearly catastrophic moment in K-pop history, or are we engaging in the viral spread of an orchestrated narrative designed for media traction? This is not a trivial inquiry. The resurfaced content that triggered the current uproar originates from fragmented interviews, loosely compiled statements, unsourced claims, and visual inferences drawn from moments as far back as 2015. These materials, now recirculating across platforms such as TikTok, YouTube, and Twitter, have no definitive source, no authenticated transcript, and no formal documentation. Still, they have incited a wave of public reaction intense enough to call into question the very mechanisms by which we consume and trust information in the digital age. The implications of believing such a narrative are profound. If indeed Jimin, one of the most visible and respected figures in BTS, was nearly removed from the group, the cultural shockwave would not be limited to fans alone. It would ripple across the entire entertainment industry. The story challenges established perceptions of unity, stability, and destiny that have been carefully cultivated by both the group and their agency over the years. But herein lies the dilemma. Do we accept this narrative as truth simply because it feels emotionally resonant? Or are we being misled by the architecture of viral content? This is where skepticism becomes not only useful but essential. We urge readers to question the following. What is the original source of this alleged confession? Why did it emerge now, a full decade later? Was it documented through a verified interview or merely implied through edited video clips and heavily interpreted statements? And even if the statement was uttered, what was the context? Was it a fleeting comment taken out of proportion? Or was it genuinely indicative of internal turmoil that almost reshaped the group forever? Think critically. In an era where emotional engagement often outweighs factual integrity, how can we distinguish authentic disclosures from constructed sensationalism? What systems of verification are we relying on, and are they sufficient? Many readers and viewers have understandably become emotionally invested in the possibility that BTS's legacy stood on such fragile ground in 2015. The idea of Jimin silently suffering, Jungkook privately mourning, and the group narrowly avoiding collapse is a narrative so dramatic, so emotionally loaded, that it demands attention. But does that attention automatically validate its truth? Let us also not forget, emotional power does not equal evidentiary truth. If this narrative is indeed based on assumptions and speculative interpretations, extrapolated from facial expressions, body language, or ambiguous remarks, it risks becoming a dangerous example of misinformation. Worse, it manipulates public sentiment and weaponizes nostalgia and empathy for the sake of engagement metrics. Is that what we have reduced truth to, a viral trend? We invite the public to reflect on these concerns. When was the last time a viral story moved you deeply, only for it to be later discredited or debunked? How did that realization affect your trust in media? At this point, we must ask, could this entire conversation around Jimin's almost departure be a well-crafted illusion? A narrative retroactively constructed from scraps of archived content and emotional inference, rather than evidence-based reporting. Furthermore, how might this alleged story serve those who circulate it? Does it boost content visibility? Drive social media engagement? Stimulate renewed interest in older footage and moments, creating a monetizable loop of nostalgia? These are not baseless provocations. They are essential questions for any informed audience navigating a digital ecosystem where the lines between journalism, fandom, and fiction are increasingly blurred. To those who have shared the story, we urge caution. Consider what it means to declare a fact in a world dominated by speculation. Reposting a claim, however well-intentioned, amplifies it. The weight of that action must not be taken lightly. To those who feel emotionally disturbed or even betrayed by the possibility of this being a fabrication, your feelings are valid. But emotion alone must not be the sole arbiter of truth. We must anchor our understanding in logic, evidence, and rigorous scrutiny. In the end, the most responsible reaction is not immediate belief, nor outright dismissal, but critical engagement. Question every detail. Demand sources. Verify context. Challenge your own assumptions. Because the truth, whatever it may be, deserves more than blind acceptance or passionate denial. And now, we place the question into your hands. Do you truly believe Jimin almost left BTS in 2015? Or are we all entangled in a brilliantly designed narrative constructed from fragments of ambiguity and collective desire? Consider the motivations behind every story. Reflect on the role of memory, media, and myth. And ask yourself, are we documenting history, or are we rewriting it? Only with vigilance, skepticism, and reflection can we protect the integrity of the stories we choose to believe.